Well, we are on to section 1-2, the nature of science. You may, as you're listening to this, if you do listen, notice that my voice is going to be a little crackly, and that's because I woke up with a cold yesterday. So we're going to get through these notes probably quicker than not, because I probably won't do a lot of talking. So this particular section is going to really define science for you. So the definition: science is a body of knowledge based on the study of the natural world. And science is just such a broad definition, and it encompasses so many different things. So the purpose of science is what's called scientific inquiry. So we need science to develop explanations to certain things. Science is a creative process that's going to lead us to an explanation. And science is also a process involving observation and experimentation. And what you'll realize is that you probably use science all of the time, every single day, but you really don't realize that you're actually using science. A theory. So I'm sure that you have heard the term theory before. So theory here is an explanation of a natural phenomenon supported by many observations. So here's the key when we talk about theory: many observations and explanations over a long period of time. So you've heard of the cell theory, you've heard of the theory of evolution, and there's many different other theories, but they've taken years and years and years to develop. A law is the relationships under certain circumstances in nature. For example, the law of conservation of matter, and this is probably something that you've heard of in physical science, that certain things cannot be destroyed, they just change to different forms. So this is a key thing that you, once again, have heard of in physical science. They are fundamentally different, so theories do not become laws, and laws do not become theories. So they're based upon totally different principles. In science, we make observations and then we draw conclusions. So scientists choose subjects to study and decide what types of data to collect. And there are many different types of data, and there are many different ways to collect data and draw a conclusion. You actually use this in your everyday life when you decide what you're going to eat for breakfast, when you decide what you're going to wear to school that particular day. You may observe that it's cold outside, so then you may decide to wear a sweatshirt as opposed to a short sleeve shirt. So that all involves science, even though you don't think that you're actually using science. Science also expands our knowledge. So scientific explanations combine what is already known with evidence from additional observations and experiments. So certain science builds from something very simple to something very complex, or we take something that's very complex and break it down into simple parts. It can go both ways. Something that is not a science is what's called pseudoscience, and pseudo means false. So pseudo means false. So pseudoscience is an area of study that tries to imitate science. Examples are going to be astrology, your horoscope, psychic readings, tarot card readings, palmistry. All of these are not based or supported by real scientific evidence, meaning these particular areas Some people get them confused and they say astrology, getting it confused with astronomy, but no, they are not a true science. Challenges accepted theories. What scientists do is they welcome a debate about one another's ideas. So scientists always challenge things, and the key here is that when they challenge things, it leads to further investigations and new discoveries. So, for example, when I was taking biology back in high school, there were only 5 kingdoms, and now there are 6, because with further advancements in basically it's been DNA, that now they've been able to break one of the kingdoms down even simpler due to the fact that we can now come up with new discoveries. Science always questions results, so observations or data that are not consistent with current scientific understanding are of interest. What this means is when there are inconsistencies, these lead to further investigations. So scientists are always questioning results of other scientists' investigations, and that's why it takes so long for a theory to develop, because there's other scientists questioning other scientists. Test claims. Biologists use standard experimental procedures, and we're going to talk about standard experimental procedures. We're going to talk about this in section 1-3. That's where we talk about the scientific method. And you have learned about this in physical science, and every single science class that you're going to take from here on in, we always start with what is the scientific method. So in experimental procedures, scientists make claims and draw conclusions based on, and here's the key, a large amount of data. So things are tested in science over and over again, and observations from what's called controlled experiments. And when we talk about controlled experiments, we are talking about dependent and independent variables. So we're going to talk about this particular thing more in depth, the controlled experiments, in our next section, section 1-3. Also, science always undergoes peer review. Science-based information must be reviewed, and here's the key, must be reviewed by scientists' peers. So what is a peer review? It's a process by which the procedures and results of an experiment are evaluated, here's the key, by other scientists who are in the same field of research or conducting similar experiments. So this is very important, because we don't just take one scientist's word. Other scientists are always challenging and then going over that particular scientist's work to determine whether it is valid or not. And finally, science in everyday life. A person who is scientifically literate combines a basic understanding of science and its processes with reasoning and thinking skills. So we use science every day, and a lot of it is going to come when we're talking about ethics and morals and values. All of that is going to happen when we talk about science. So these all play a key, and we'll talk more about ethics in our next section, section 1-3. So that concludes section 1-2. It's just basically an overview of what science really is.